Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
So how are you this wonderful morning? God's word has spoken to us again today as we enter into the great reenactment of the sacrifice of the cross, as we participate in the Eucharist, the new covenant, through which we encounter God in a unique way, be part of God's life in the Eucharist. The readings of today are wonderful. So our theme will be on listening to God. Listening to God. And we draw it from the classical story about the call of Abraham, Genesis chapter 12, from verse 1 to 4. And verse 4 says, and I'll read it straight from the Missal. Abraham went as the Lord directed him. Abraham went as the Lord directed him. And then in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 17, I'm particularly concerned about verse 7. It says, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." So the story of transfiguration is always a story that comes up 2 or 3 times in the course of the year. So I won't focus on the transfiguration, but on this line of the transfiguration. My beloved Son. This is the testimony of the Father. Listen to him. Obedience of faith. What Abraham did is called in theology and in spiritual theology obedience of faith. He had a voice, or he had a deep experience, and then God spoke to him to go to the place of the unknown. Not sure what the place was about, but he was certain about one thing, that this was God speaking to him. And since it was God, it has to be true. He obeyed and walked to the place. It was in that obedience and following the directives of God that he reached the place that he didn't know about. He had no map, no GPS, nothing. He just walked. And as he was walking, God was directing him to the destination, because God has the master plan. God has already calibrated everything, calculated everything, and set the word. Obedience of faith. But it takes also listening. And there's connection between obedience and listening. Actually, from obedience is taken from the Latin word ob audire. Ob audire. Ob audire means what? To hear, to listen. Ob audire. That's the root word for obedience, the etymology of obedience. And that's why the church connected the word in the discussion in the Catechism of the Catholic Church about the faith journey, example of Abraham and Mary. To listen. So Jesus says to us, God says to us, in reference to the Son, Matthew 17, 7, my beloved son, this is my beloved son, listen to him, obey him, follow what he says. Listening to God is a very weird thing or scary thing, and sometimes challenging. And God speaks to us in many ways. Some of them are enjoyable, some of them are pleasant, many aren't. I shared a testimony yesterday with the church. During this Lent, one of the things I prayed for is to be attuned to the voice of God every time. And also to maximize those lost opportunities. We have so many lost opportunities in our spiritual life. We could capitalize on the graces of the sacrifices we face every day and offer them up to the sacrifice of Jesus. And we get graces upon graces. So I said, during this Lent, oh Lord, let me be aware of those unique experiences and unique, sometimes challenging experiences that make us better people, holier than we are. So yesterday had a very, very busy schedule, very, very busy. Went to bed by 1 a.m. in the morning. Went to Bakersfield by 8 in the morning for a long day of meetings. Now, as that was over, I was driving back because I have confession by 3 and Mass by 4. So as I was driving back, I said, God, please, I don't want to have more people at the confessional, maybe 10, 20, so that I will take 10 minutes before the confession, because I will arrive exactly 3 to take a power nap at the confessional so that nobody will knock at the door. Am I telling you priest secrets? Forgive me, that's a crazy priest. God forgive me. So, I drove all the way, came in, first shocker. I locked myself out. I didn't go with the key. So the garage was open, but every place was locked out. So I was forced to come into church first. Tired, exhausted. Came into church. 3 people were waiting for me for confession. Entered. I started to hear confession from that 3 till 5 minutes to Mass. Now, the point is, as I was hearing the confession, I said, God, but it dawned on me that God was telling me, my son, you are not the one to tell me the type of sacrifice